everybody. Welcome to Train of Thought. This is our first episode, so we're going to see what happens. But what's going to happen next is we're going to bring up our first guest ever. It's Baltimore icon, legend, local, star, mystery, cryptid, mother, aunt.
Auntie. Yeah, that's probably better.
It's Jena Frick, everybody.
Hi. I'm so excited to be the first guest ever.
Yeah, it's super exciting, especially because we've done a podcast before, which has probably aged fantastically because it was all about Harry Potter.
I know. Well, you know what? We did. To be fair, we did have a full section talking about separating the art from the artist.
And we were going to do Simpsons, but then someone already did that.
I know.
It's Harry Potter. Yeah, it's probably not aged super well, but it'll be fine. And here we are. But yeah, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you're known for in the city, or what sort of projects you're working on recently. Again, the whole idea of this was to bring on folks who have been on laugh tracks before, to give them a bit of an opportunity to expand and talk about who they are, what they're doing off the stage a bit, because you were at the November laugh track show with Forevermore.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm Jena Frick, and yes, I was on laugh tracks in November with my sketch comedy group Forevermore. And Forevermore is Baltimore's all-women sketch comedy troupe. I'm pretty sure it is the only active sketch comedy group in Baltimore at this time. Yeah. I know Baltimore's a very improv and stand-up heavy city, and there really hadn't been any solid, regularly performing sketch comedy troops. I had a gruel moment there where I was going to say groups and then I said troops.
We're not soldiers. We can call ourselves whatever we want. A troop is not real.
Sketch comedy compound?
Sketch comedy, delusion.
Sure. Pick whatever you want. They call ravens a murder, so you know. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, there wasn't any sketch comedy group in Baltimore that I knew of, and that was kind of the genesis for me starting Forevermore, because I love comedy, I love writing, and I specifically love sketch comedy, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to do it. So I guess when you ask, what am I known for in Baltimore? That was, a long roundabout way of answering that question. It's, I'm the showrunner and artistic director for Forevermore Sketch Comedy in Baltimore. And anyone who's familiar with the emo scene, I sing lead in Guyliner, which is an emo cover band that has been around in Baltimore for a few years too.
And we will definitely get into Guyliner in a little bit, but I do want to take it back towards the beginning and where you started with comedy in general. And I know you started Matinee Night Live at James Madison University, where you went to college. But would you consider that your first comedy experience, or would you consider doing Scapinis in high school?
You mean Scapino?
Scapino. Well, it's spelled Scapinis in the hashtag, so I wasn't sure how to pronounce it. I didn't want to do anything anti-Italian. Because I saw this and I'm like, okay, is this the actual villain origin story?
Oh my god. It's definitely not, but it's 100% a stepping stone on my villain origin story. Yeah, so Scapino, which is what it's called.
Okay.
I cannot believe that you went back on my Facebook history and found this. Y'all, this is my senior year of high school play.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And the style of it is commedia dell'arte, so very slapsticky comedy, that sort of thing. Okay. But yeah, it was called Scapino, and being freaking 17 and 18-year-old idiots, we nicknamed it Scapinis.
Oh, okay.
And that's just what we called it.
That would explain why I couldn't find anything about this play, because I'm like, okay, Jena was doing some theater in high school. Let's see what Scapinis is about. Turns out nothing.
Yeah, it's it's commedia dell'arte, which is, the Italian form of theater, which is the baseline for a lot of different forms of theater and playwrights to this day. Even actually, I think Shakespeare actually took inspiration from this form of comedy. Okay. So, if you do a little more research, you'll see some crossovers in the types of characters that are written. Okay. So the character that I played was the sidekick to the main comic character in it. So I wore a disguise and a mustache at one point, and I hit someone with a giant sausage at another point because it's Italian, and of course you did that.
It's also 2010 or so. Everyone had mustaches on their fingers, throwing sausages. It was the vibe. You went on from this to go found Matinee Night Live at James Madison University, So tell me a little bit more about Maddie Night Live. Was that just like SNL for the university? Was it more improv oriented? Was it just sketch? Like what's the elevator pitch for MNL?
So Maddie Night Live was the premier sketch comedy group at James Madison University. So it's basically Saturday Night Live, but for JMU. And the reason why I started that group is actually because when I was a freshman, I auditioned for the improv team.
Okay.
Named New and Improv, fantastic group. I got through the callback round and didn't actually end up getting in. So then my sophomore year, I auditioned again, didn't get in. And I was like, rather than trying to fit myself into the mold of things that are already existing, maybe I can try and create something new. And I realized that there wasn't a sketch comedy group. There was just an improv group.
Right.
And it was a very amazing improv group that was pretty hard to get into. So I was like, I have experience writing. I have experience in theater. I love SNL. I love comedy. Right. I love Mad TV, that sort of thing. So I was like, okay, well, I met a bunch of people through auditions for this improv group. Maybe I can grab them and try and create this group that doesn't exist at the university. So I created Maddie Night Live. And it was very much a situation where the stars kind of aligned, where everyone that I grabbed to do this was such a go-getter and was so funny and ready to just create something brand new from the ground up. And it was super successful, which was awesome. So yeah, and no hard feelings between us and the improv group at all, because we ended up doing a couple collab shows, and then a few people who were already on the improv group ended up auditioning for the sketch comedy group and got onto it. So
and then we can talk about that later too, once we get to like the Baltimore era and like improv and Charm City Comedy Project, all that stuff. But there was so much overlap between like improv and sketch. So when you sat down and started to write more like sketches for Maddie Night Live, was this just inspired? Because I know your current project Forevermore is mostly like women oriented and specifically about like, modern day, a little more topical stuff. When you were writing for Maddie Night Live, what was your sort of, I don't want to say like inspiration, but like where were you like coming up with concepts? What was the vibe you were kind of going for? Was it just starting to be... a lot of SNL now is very topical, very like cultural reference. It's like, oh, they read Twitter this week. Let's see what we can repeat here. Or was this something a little more specific to JMU that you wanted to do to make it relevant to your audience?
So I would say that it was a combination of all of the above. For my, like, it was a group of lots of different writers. So everyone kind of had their own voice that they were able to contribute to the group, which is part of the reason why I love doing sketch comedy, because it's very group oriented and you get a lot of different minds together to create something very cool. We did have a lot of sketches that were catered towards JMU's audience and stuff. We used definitely JMU language, isms, jargons, things like that. But we all, like myself, my writing style, I definitely write from my life and my life experiences. I'm a woman,
yes. Yes.
So
I've heard actually.
just in case anybody didn't know, I am a woman.
Yes.
I identify as a woman.
Noted woman.
And so I write from my experiences. So a lot of the sketches that I do write have that kind of satirical heightened reality of experiences that I've had in my life as a woman and, just kind of as a college student at the time.
Yeah.
But then, there are like other ones that I wrote and other people wrote that were just kind of silly and funny for no reason. Like there was one sketch that I loved where the entire joke was all the characters' names rhymed. So it was Bill, Jill, Phil, like whatever. That was the entire premise. We had another sketch where it was character driven, and it was Becky the Ugly Lifeguard, where it was a girl who was a lifeguard who just was very obsessed with being a lifeguard, but always caught the attention of the hot guy lifeguard, one of those ones. And then it wasn't until the second year that Maddie Night Live was a thing that we actually started incorporating more topical stuff. We had a Weekend Update style sketch that my writing partner at the time, Nathan, and my good friend Sarah co-anchored, and they would get topical headlines from maybe a week or two before our show had started, and would write Weekend Update style jokes about them, and we'd have guests that came on to do interviews similar to SNL, but we called it Timely Notice because at JMU, anytime they sent out some sort of notice about a crime that happened on campus, the subject line would be JMU timely notice.
Someone's robbing people.
Pretty
Just
much.
so you know, it's timely.
Exactly. So we called that news segment JMU timely notice, but Maddie Night Live timely notice.
Timely notice.
Yeah. So that was a double hitter, both JMU oriented, but also timely news. So it was kind of a perfect combination of all of the above.
And it seemed like you were able to integrate both the timeliness of like JMU timely notices, but also like what you were studying. Specifically, you were in SMAD Dungeon a lot, kind to.
You really did your research here.
I did.
I love
because
it.
This really caught my eye because you would eventually go on to do normal stand-up, but in 2013 you were worried about the worst thing in your dungeon package was your stand-up, which I think was a different kind of stand-up.
Yes, it was.
Specifically around 3:40 in the morning, and I'm loving this specifically because I was also like a college comedy person who was trapped in like a computer dungeon for most of my degree, trying to like meld it all together. Mm-hmm. So seeing this and realizing like, oh, you would go on to do stand-up I guess 7 years later, because that was 2014, 2013. And how did it really integrate being able to, like, you know, work in a, I don't want to say dungeon, but like working on like communications and taking this like professional experience you were learning, doing lighting, doing writing, doing communication stuff, and being able to integrate it into like, you know, creative passions? Because I'm an environmental science person. I make maps. I don't have a lot of like this world and that world.
Yeah.
So how would you say, like, your experiences, like, professionally or academically, whatever, we're being able to integrate into, you know, what you can do creatively?
Yeah, so part of the reason why I wanted to study journalism was because I've always loved writing. You know, I love storytelling, and it's kind of funny because when I was in high school, and even probably younger than that, I could never decide what I wanted to be when I grew up. That was probably the worst question you could ask me when I was younger, because I wanted to do everything. Right. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Did you have the marine biology phase?
Yes, I did.
I fully had that
phase. There's definitely like just like a stockpile of dolphin shit that I have from when I was younger.
You know a horse girl? I was a dolphin boy.
Yes.
I'm wearing a fucking
You're wearing jellyfish
today, but oh my god, yeah, living this close to the ocean as well. It was like fully like every Christmas and birthday I would get like dolphin stuff.
Yes.
And then cut to now.
You can't tell your family that you like anything because that's all you're going to get.
It's over.
Yeah.
And I will say shout out to your family for a lot of this research, because your mom is your biggest supporter. Everything was shared over and over.
Listen.
And we'll leave her at that, but thank you for your service.
Thanks,
Amen.
Tony.
Thank
I appreciate you. Except sometimes I'm like, stop, please.
Please, ma'am.
I don't need your friends from high school and college talking about your beautiful family on my random posts about trying to advertise my shows. Oh gosh. Anyway, but what I was saying was, it was really hard for me to pick what I wanted to be when I grew up, because I wanted to be everything. Right. And then I realized if I was a journalist or a reporter, what I could do is I could interview people and talk to people and get a sampler of all these different types of things. So, you know, if I'm interviewing a dentist one day, I'm a dentist that day. If I'm interviewing a heart surgeon one day, I'm a heart surgeon. Right. I was lucky enough to be able to have different interviews like that when I did eventually go on into my actual like professional career. But yeah, so in college, like that, I settled on that because it was a way to kind of satisfy all the different things that I was interested in and wanted to do, but couldn't really pick between all of them. And I specifically did video and broadcast journalism because I've always loved video. And you know, when I was younger, people ask, you know, what was the best Christmas gift you ever got? I got a video camera when I was like 12 years old.
That's really good.
And it was a garbage shit video camera, but I'll tell you what, my sister and I have hours of footage of us just like making movies, like horror movies and SNL style things, all that stuff. So in studying video journalism and broadcasting, I was able to actually learn like the specific techniques, how to use all the equipment, how to properly like story tell, that sort of thing. And in doing so, I was able to translate that into a lot of my creative works because, you know, you have to do writing and sketch comedy. And as a stand-up and as a comic, you have to be able to captivate your audience and tell a story and in a lot of ways be visual. Like, you got your video camera here. So well, you understand.
You gotta have a bit of everything.
Exactly.
To really get ready.
So, and you're like champing at the bit to like tell me something else about whatever, and I'm kind of afraid for what's coming up now. I was gonna pull
out like a screenshot of you and your sister's old footage. I wish I had that.
My God. I was gonna say, there's definitely a video somewhere on my Facebook of my sister and I wearing homemade Degrassi shirts singing the Degrassi theme song. So that's out there somewhere.
It could be. Everyone, if you want to find it, please don't. But
yeah. I mean, I was kind of proud of that because I choreographed that. My sister's a little more embarrassed than I am, but...
I mean, that's fine. Again, she is in this picture as well, I believe. So she is part of this.
Oh, yeah. She's 100% in... It's me, my sister, and our best friend from high school, Sean Hipp, who is now in Utah right now. But...
So you were able to take all this time, both like professionally learning how to do like, lighting, camera work, actual writing, and how to set up an interview, how to set up all these things. And then moved on, and from my understanding, there was a bit of a period between like fully integrating into Baltimore when you moved here in like 2017 or so. Yes, because before that you were
it was like 2016, 2015, something like that. Like right at the beginning of 2016.
Because you did Avenue Q right after college.
I did.
And that was something different for you because that was very puppeteery and very musical. And I think that's a really exciting like almost informative performance because you didn't get to do, like, was there anything musical in Maddie Night Live? Was there anything musical in anything else you were doing? And does Avenue Q really relate into, like, some other music things you could have maybe done in the future that we are currently underlining? Or was that something you just, like, Avenue Q is great, I want to do this, let's get into it?
So, all right. So, not to hamper your research stuff, but so I grew up as a musical theater kid. Okay. So I was already very much integrated into the musical theater world, and actually, surprise, surprise. So when I was in high school, I did a production of Little Shop of Horrors. And they did the thing where they split the cast. So, like, you're one character in one show and another character in another show. So I was a do-up girl in one. Okay. And then in the other one, I actually puppeteered the plant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was inside the plant, doing the movements, like, all that. And then actually, after that, I was in a traveling children's theater production of Puff the Magic Dragon. Oh, boy. And I played Puff the Magic Dragon, and I puppeteered the dragon head and everything, and we had like guest appearances at like daycares and like kids schools where I was with the puppet and like interacting with the kids. So I have had a little bit of puppeteering experience. It was all in there, that
pre-Facebook.
Yeah, okay. I will say though with Avenue Q, so I didn't do any musical theater or anything like that in college outside of like Maddie Night Live. There were some musical elements to it and like some songs because that is just like something that's ingrained in me. I love music, I love dancing, love all that, and I think that I think that like especially in comedy a lot of times like music and sound like can really make a punchline hit, like more so than others.
It emphasizes.
Exactly, especially if it's used correctly and strategically, and that's definitely something I'm always thinking about whenever I am writing or filming something is the musical element to it or the score. Right. And so when I graduated college, sometimes when you leave that world and come back into the other one, you're trying to integrate into like being an adult and like a fully formed human, like that sort of thing. Yeah. You feel a little lost sometimes because you're like, in college, I had like this set schedule. I had this very close group of friends and all that stuff. And I was outside of college once I graduated trying to find that community again and was missing my passion of performing because I didn't really have an outlet for that, I was running a whole sketch comedy group then. So it was very different. And so I auditioned for Avenue Q because I was like, it's a funny show. It's got puppets in it.
Yeah, it's great. It's dirty. It's fun.
Exactly. And what was awesome about that one is in all the years that I've done musical theater, I don't think I've ever been like a lead ever. Yeah. And this show was special because not only was the lead like a comic character, she was also a puppet.
Yeah.
And also, I'm not a soprano. I'm an alto, and there's very, very little room for altos as leading ladies.
Right.
And this character, I could speak in a puppet voice the whole time, and I could sing in a puppet voice the whole time. So it was kind of like perfect, and it was probably one of my favorite shows to be in.
Really?
Just because, yeah, it was, because I talked like this the whole time, and then I also sang like this, and it was really, really fun to do that. So even if I wasn't the best singer, I could act the shit out of it, and that's really all that mattered. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was great to fill that void of wanting to perform and stuff again during such a period that was really difficult transition-wise, which I'm sure is difficult for a lot of people leaving college
it's pretty
trying to be a
similar.
human.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I know the second I left college, I started my college improv troupe where I went dog collar comedy. And after...
Look at us starting comedy groups.
Hey! I just didn't have... There was nothing at UMBC where I went. So I was like, okay, well, if there's going to be something, I have to do it. So I started it, and then I went and graduated. I'm like, oh, so there's just, like, really nothing. Okay, so I tried to pick up my own thing as, like, a sequel series to Dog Collar called Dog House, but it never went anywhere. But you did something similar called Frick Comedy that you tried to start... I'm going to try to start, because I could not find anything after the auditions.
Yeah.
So I think this is also, like, a very common occurrence in people who start things that, like, it tried something, and it just, I'm not going to say it wasn't successful.
It wasn't. You can say it.
I mean, but again, that's something that, like, you and myself and a lot of other people in the field always do, is, like, you gotta try stuff, and then if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere, and then you just, like...
Keep trying.
You just keep trying. You do it again.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, like you and I are very familiar with this, where it's like, if there isn't a thing for you, create a space where you can have that thing that you want, you know? This is a common thing that people say, you are your own advocate, and that's not just, you know, for health and stuff. It's also for your passions and your creativity. Like, create your own space. Just like Nike says, just do it.
Just do it.
Also, Nike, sponsor this podcast.
Nike, please, just do it. Swoosh. Because you then went on to join Brick Penguin, at least for one show, from what I could see. But then you got into the Charm City Comedy Project sphere of it all. For those who don't know, Charm City Comedy Project from a time in the past till about 2020 was like a very influential improv network in the city of Baltimore, where you were a part of Moonbot. And was Jackets part of Charm City Comedy Project, or was that separate?
No, it was separate.
Okay.
So, what I actually ended up doing after Frick was... not a success. Well, okay, for those... So for context, Frick was a comedy group that I was trying to start. Mm-hmm. It was before I moved into Baltimore. Right. And I was like, oh, I'll just start a group that does improv and sketch. Yeah. How hard could it be?
Super easy.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Trying to get strangers together to do comedy is like herding cats, and it was very unsuccessful.
Trying to get like people you know together doing comedy is like herding cats.
This is very true too. So you got to find the right people to get something started. So anyways, that fizzled very quickly. So what had happened after that is I ended up signing up for a sketch comedy writing class. Okay. At Big, Baltimore Improv Group. They had this as like a special class. Usually they just do exclusively improv and stuff. Yeah. And I wasn't super interested in signing up for improv classes because I've been doing improv for a while.
Same exact boat. Like I went straight to CCCP, Charm City Comedy Project, because I was doing improv all throughout college. I didn't need to like take classes.
Right.
That
and
felt reductive.
Mm-hmm. It's also one of those things where like they do it like curriculum style where you have to do 101 and then 201.
Exactly.
And listen, I don't know how many times I can play Zip Zap Zop before I am an expert at yes and, but I feel like I'm good.
It's good. Yeah. No shade. Big is doing amazing work.
No, definitely.
But maybe not for somebody who's a returning improver, so to speak.
Sure, yeah. So I signed up for their sketch comedy writing class to try and find other people who are interested in writing sketch comedy and maybe grabbing people who would make a more successful group who could perform and stuff. So what had happened was the teacher of that class really liked the work that I was doing, and he was the showrunner for Brick Penguins in DC.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he asked me to join their group.
Okay.
So I did for a very short amount of time, and then unfortunately what had happened was I got a big girl job and I wasn't able to commute down to DC anymore. So I was only able to be with them for one show. But I did write a lot of really great sketches for that did end up making appearances in future Forevermore shows, which is great.
Yeah.
But then, so after that, I still wanted to fill that comedy performance void.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing, which I know we were just like bagging on a second ago, but I took a 101 class with Big. And that's when I met my group of people who ended up being in Jackets with me. Okay. So we took Improv 101, we took 201, we took a couple 300 classes, and we just gelled super well. We became really, really great friends. Yeah. I still play D&D with a lot of them. That's awesome. Even though one of them lives in Germany, one of them lives in DC, and we figure out times to get together on Zoom to do D&D still, which is freaking awesome. And anyway, so Jackets was an anagram of the first letter of our first names. Okay. Yeah, and our tagline was "Comedy to keep you warm." So it was independent of Charm City Comedy, but the person who ran Charm City Comedy really loved us and would book us all the time. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, when two of the members moved away, I lost that, and the person from Charm City Comedy Project was like, hey, we have an opening on Moonbat, why don't you join us, because I know you don't have a group anymore. So that's how I ended up on there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's a bit of like an orphanage situation sometimes with improv, where it's like, okay, you got into this because you want to like meet people and network, and then like everyone moved away, everyone had kids, everyone got a real job, etc., etc. And then you end up doing a musical about the holidays, and you end up doing a mystery whodunit about aliens.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
It was an improvised mystery whodunit about aliens.
About aliens.
That Jake and I were both in.
Yes.
I played a beauty queen, and Jake played
the richest man in the city.
Yes.
And I still get the Facebook memories every year. And that's the sort of thing about like doing not like bigger name theater projects in a city like Baltimore, where it's so small, is that like you kind of end up in a bunch of different circles where it's like, okay, yeah, this is 101. I don't want to do this exactly because I've done Zip Zap Zop for the rest of my life, but I met somebody cool.
Yeah.
I networked with them, and now I can like cut to a long time later, and we're doing D&D still. We're keeping up. I can take the ideas, the projects, the concepts I was doing at the time, and like bring it into other projects, which is super exciting.
Definitely. I mean, that's why I did open mics and stuff for the longest. I mean, I know we're going to get to the stand-up era of my life, but that's why I did them for so long, is because I would meet so many great people and, you know, anyways, but...
So we were doing like theater-y, sort of like kind of between improv and theater, like into basically 2020, and then 2020 hit. And then you decided to be a Paula Deen impersonator?
Oh my god, stop! I can't believe you found that!
Would you still call yourself a butter enthusiast, or just a talk show host?
Well, I would call myself a butter advocate.
A butter ally.
A butter ally?
Got it. Okay.
Everything is better with butter, baby.
Everything is better with butter. I mean, I saw that and I loved it because it was like a perfect snapshot of how we all collectively lost our minds.
Oh my god! I can't believe this. Okay, all right. Can I explain the origin story of this first?
Please explain Dina Paul to me. Break her down.
Okay, so Dina Paul is my Paula Deen character, where basically she just does a bunch of how-to videos where the premise is, at the end of the day, it's just lots of butter. And so it starts with making mashed potatoes, and then the second video was how to do your hair in a nice updo, and I ended up sticking a fuck ton of butter in my hair.
We were all doing our best.
Yes.
We were all doing our best.
There was supposed to be a third one that I didn't end up filming, and it was her delivering a baby and just putting butter all
around.
Yep. And then like putting it on the floor so she could like have the baby slide right out and she catches it. That didn't end up happening. But so this was a character I actually wrote like a couple years beforehand.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I did. And then when when pandemic hit, I was like, I have all these scripts and I could do some of them as like solo characters. I don't need like a whole sketch comedy team to make this happen.
To do this, yeah.
Yeah, and the person I was with at the time, he was a videographer, so he had like the equipment to do it.
Setup, right.
Yeah, so I was like, hey, you want to film me doing this stupid thing? He was like, yeah, sure. So
you want to see me put butter in my hair?
Yep. I mean, he was all on board for it. So it's just, like I said, there's a lost like third episode out there that hasn't been filmed yet. So
it's somewhere in the ether, along with like you and your sister's like recorded stuff. Like
exactly.
There's just so much content that is lost to the ages.
Yeah, I'm sure it's somewhere in my parents' basement.
Oh gosh.
Never to see the light of day again.
So we made it through an entire year and a half or so, however long, of doing lockdown, and then you kind of came out of that to start doing stand-up, which is not something you were doing really. Were you doing any stand-up before COVID?
I was not.
Okay.
No, it was something that I had always wanted to try. I had been to a couple like open mics or stand-up shows just to watch, and get comfortable. I heard from a lot of people that if you're interested in doing stand-up and you feel a bit intimidated, just go to an open mic and kind of get a feel for it and, see what other people are doing. Yeah. And then some people are going to be great, and then other people you'll be like, I could do that.
I could do that. How hard could it be? This guy is barely standing up.
Yeah, and that's exactly what ended up happening. And I actually, as a warm-up, wait, no, that's not true. I did my very first set right before lockdown happened.
Okay. Right.
I couldn't tell you anything that happened. I totally blacked it out.
I mean, that's the first set.
And so I did that, and then I did one set, lockdown happened, and I was like, fuck. All right. Well, I guess that's the end of my stand-up career. Nice, but then there was like virtual open mics, so I ended up doing some like Zoom ones, which I felt like for me at least, that felt like a much easier way to ease into it, just because that first one I was so scared and I was so nervous. Yeah. And I lived on stage, right? So but it was like really weird to have that feeling.
Flavor when you're by yourself entirely on the stage, because of someone who like went from improv to stand-up, the idea of like, okay, I'm here with my improv team. There's like a dozen of us. We are all set to go. I've got my sketch group. And then suddenly you're doing stand-up and you're by yourself.
Yep.
If anything fucks up, it's your fault. There's no one to like volley off of. There's no way to like bring it back up. It's just you by yourself. And that is like a huge barrier, I think, to like kind of diving into stand-up from improv sketch sort of team sport world. Exactly. Because it's a solo sport.
Yeah, 100%. And I will say too, because like improv, like you also have that sense of anxiousness because you are making it up on the spot. Right. You kind of have to like rely on vibes and
intuition.
Yeah, that sort of thing. And with sketch, that's something that's pre-written, and you would think, okay, like stand-up is also pre-written, so it's easy. Two totally different realms. Yeah. Totally different vibes. Yeah. And as someone who has done sketch and like theater and stuff like that, it is a lot easier to go on stage with a bunch of people than it is to go on there by yourself.
By yourself, fully solo on the stage.
With stuff that you wrote.
Exactly. Where it's just like, okay, this is what it's going to be. So you did stand for a little bit, and then you sort of went back to the sketch world. I think specifically in 2017, you went and sat down and wrote your first inspired full comedy sketch that you signed off with a sassy dancing guy.
Wait, what is this?
On this day, I think it was 2017 that you
oh my god!
Post-college. So for a while you were doing stand-up, and then you kind of made your way back to the sketch world. So was it this sketch that brought you back in, even though it was from a couple years ago, or did you still have the sassy dancing guy inside yourself that really needed to like do some sketch work?
Oh my! Should I read this? Because
please do.
Okay, this is an audio medium, so I'm like, I know exactly what this is. Okay,
I think you need to read everything.
Okay. I was like, this is so stupid. Oh my God. Here's my own version of Throwback Thursday. Today was the first day in a very long time that I felt really inspired by something in my life and decided to sit down and write a full comedy sketch. I used to do it all the time, but sometimes when life gets in the way, the things you used to love doing get pushed to the back burner, and then it's hard to get back into them. I know exactly what sketch this is, too.
Oh boy.
I want to challenge everyone to think back to something you used to love doing but haven't really had the time to do. Then take 60 minutes out of your week to do it. I still stand by this.
Really? Just an hour out of your week.
Just take an hour out of your week to do something that you used to love doing. Yeah. Like, it's great. Speaking for myself, this really helped me to find nostalgia and happiness in my life. On an average day, I can't believe you found this. On an average day of my week. And I hope it brings you all the same, whatever your throwback hobbies may be. And if you made it to the end of this post, thanks for reading. And here's a sassy dancing guy as a reward. And it's one of those things where it's like a parentheses head, and he's like going like this.
And my favorite part is, it is 2017. Emojis had existed.
Yeah, I don't care. They don't have an emoji like that at that time. I don't, and also this is just funnier. Come on.
Much funnier, frankly.
No,
putting the effort into doing like a whole like guy out of parentheses is much better than an emoji.
I'm dying that you brought this particular one up.
Yeah.
Because this one ended up being the closer for our very first show with Forevermore.
Really?
Yeah, and that was the first time it was performed ever.
Really?
So, so for those of you who have seen a Forevermore show, it's the sketch is called Someone Special. And for those of you who haven't seen a Forevermore show, basically what the premise is I was at work that day, and I worked at a news station, and one of the directors there was he's like a little bit older, like my dad's age, something like that. Yeah. And it was Valentine's Day weekend, and he was asking me if I was doing anything for Valentine's Day, and I was like, oh no, I'm just, probably just gonna hang out with my roommates. We're gonna, have mimosas, do breakfast for dinner. And he was like, you're gonna find someone special someday, don't you worry about it. And I was like, okay, thanks. And it was like an awkward, like kind of like, all right, cool, thanks. And I was thinking about it later, and then I ended up writing this whole entire sketch where it was just like a big, huge, long monologue about, thank you so much. My life is now reassured, and you're a goddamn fucking saint for telling me this, because I never thought I would ever find that. It's probably one of my favorite sketches, and it's one that I won't let any of the other girls in my group perform except for me, because it's mine.
It's your baby.
Yeah, and that's so funny that you pulled this up, because I remember exactly the day that I wrote that. Yeah. And then as soon as after I wrote that sketch, I was like, I want to get back into writing. So what I did was I did 30 days of sketch. So I took a month. Okay. And I challenged myself to write one sketch every day for 30 days for an entire month. And I did it. And some of the sketches I've actually used in Forevermore. Right. Some were absolute dog shit, but that's what happens when you
write. You're doing 30 sketches in a month. Like, some of them are going to be bad. It's a numbers game.
Absolutely.
Like, just have 30 of something. If you get 20 out of it, that's really good.
Yeah. I definitely got at least 15.
Okay. That's pretty good. That's enough.
And it was just a way to exercise that muscle and, force myself to throw myself back into that world. And I don't think that I would be doing sketch comedy right now if that moment hadn't happened. So this is wild that you pulled this. That sassy dancing guy. Yes! That sassy dancing guy is what put me back into this.
So, from my understanding, stand-up was like 2021, and the first Forevermore show I saw was 2023 at the Galentine show, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But talk to me a little bit about the genesis of a Baltimore sketch group. Like, obviously, you didn't show up in Valentine's Day in 2023 being like, we're going to do sketch today. Like, you obviously had to bring everyone together, write your play or your lineup, so to speak, of your sketches. What was the sort of like impetus where it's just like, okay, I've been doing stand-up long enough, I am doing improv, but I really want to get back to sketch. How do I bring all these sketches together, whether it's a 5-year-old sketch at this point, 6-year-old, or is it something brand new? How did it really like spark off for you to start Forevermore?
So what had happened was, as part of my coming out of quarantine thing, I really wanted to get back into theater.
Right.
And I randomly one night was just decided, Googled auditions for theater in Baltimore.
Right.
And Spotlighters Theater was holding auditions for Puffs, which
right.
is a spoof of the Harry Potter books, but told from the Hufflepuff's perspective.
Yeah.
Very slapsticky, very funny, straight play.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is like right up my alley. I mean, we just talked about how I did a Harry Potter podcast with you.
But also a Commedia dell'arte.
Yes, very much
exactly.
Commedia dell'arte. Like
yes.
slapsticky, very prop heavy, physical comedy. And like that's like my bread and butter. I love stuff like that.
I saw Puffs and it was so stressful to watch because it was for context, a like square theater like in the round, and you had like doors on each corner, and people were constantly running in and out of each doors, and I was like, someone's going to hit somebody else while they're running.
Oh,
like,
don't you worry,
we're gonna close on each other.
We very carefully choreographed it. A lot of the lines were some of the lines were improvised, but the movements were not, so we wouldn't hurt ourselves. Right. There was a scene where I like put on 4 or 5 different wigs in one in 1 minute, basically. Like, there was a lot of
It was
happening.
that kind of show where it's like, next thing, go.
Very much
Neville
so.
Longbottom, Dumbledore. I was like, please don't hit anybody.
Yeah. I played 7 different characters, and it was wild. But so much fun. And so I auditioned for that show, got in, and that cast and that like production was just so special because everyone there was so talented and so fun to work with and just so ready to put on just an incredible production. All of the props were just voluntarily made by the cast. There was no plan by the theater to put the props together because the person they hired to do the props quit right before the production started. So there was no plan, and one of the girls who was in the show was like,
I'll do it.
I'll make the props.
Sure.
And she made a sorting hat that looked like a magic 8-ball that lit up all the different colors, you know, of the different houses for Hogwarts, which is incredible. And one of the guys 3D printed all of the wands that we use that had special lighting where you press a button and it was a white light for a spell and a green light for Avada Kedavra.
Right.
Like, I don't know how often you are with people that like just want to step up like that and make the best production possible, but that's what happened there.
Yeah. And
I love that community aspect so much, and I just loved all the people that I was working with. I thought everyone was so talented and so funny. And I can remember the exact moment where I had this thought, I want to produce a Galentine's Day sketch show. Okay. I was at the gym and I was on the elliptical and I was listening to a podcast or something about like relationships and stuff like that. And I was just kind of like thinking, and I'm like, oh, I like have like a funny sketch about like dating, and I have a funny sketch about a breakup, and I have a funny sketch about this. And I was like, I feel like I have a lot of stuff. Wouldn't it be so great if I did a show that was like themed around Galentine's Day? But how would I even do that? Ugh, it sucks that I can't produce any of these sketches that I wrote. And then I was like, wait a minute. I just met all these like really incredible, wonderful women. Yeah. What if we just got together and produced a show? Yeah. Like, what if I just like booked a theater and was like, let's fucking do this? Yeah. So like as I was on the elliptical, I messaged all of them and I was like, hey, so if I write a 90-minute Galentine's Day sketch show, would you guys want to be in it? And they were all like, yes. And I was like, great. Cool. So I had already had about like maybe like 45 pages written with like stuff that I had previously, and with the rule of like 1 page per minute for a script or something, all I needed to do was write, what's the math on that? Like 50 more, something like that. Math, yeah. Something like that. And I was like, cool, I can do that. Yeah. And at that point it was December. So I was like, I have 2 months to put this together. Let's do it. So we got together. I reached out to Fells Point Corner Theater, and they were super accommodating and were able to give us the space on the weekend that we needed it, which was Galentine's Day weekend. Yeah. And it was basically like one of those things where the stars totally aligned. Everything came together. Everything came together perfectly. Yeah. And I was able to write those extra pages. We had 2 of the other girls also contribute scripts. So like it just worked perfectly. And that's what happened. Was anyone else like coming from a sketch background, or was it you sort of like, here's how sketch works, here's how we do this, here's how like
a sketch is formatted, because frankly I don't have a ton of like sketch background. I understand how to write a joke, I understand how to write maybe even a scene, but the structure and format of a sketch is very different. So was that like a conversation you had in the beginning where it's like, okay, here's how this works, pulling people from mostly theater, I think basically like improv and maybe like a bit of like college theater background, because I know Puffs was like a lot of like people's first out of college shows. So was that something you had to like grapple with, where it's like, okay, let me tell you what sketch is? Or was it people being like, oh yeah, I've done this. Yeah, it's kind of like this. Here's how we kind of approach this.
So nobody had sketch background before.
Yeah.
I was the only one.
Okay.
I was also the only one that had writing background.
Okay.
So
right.
It was one of those things where it was like the understanding was, I'm going to write this and everyone's going to perform it.
Get into it.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And like I said, like 2 of them ended up contributing sketches.
Yeah.
One of which, Christy, who like does all she was the one who did all the props and stuff for Puffs and whatnot.
Okay.
And she has a dance background, so she's very musically inclined.
Right.
She ended up writing the parody that we do of Seasons of Love, and put that together, and that's one that we use a lot as like an opener sketch. So that was one that came out of that very first show. Okay. And I think everything else was stuff that I wrote.
Okay.
For the very first one.
Right.
And then later, when we evolved into like being more of a group, I was able to kind of give little workshops and tutorials of this is how sketch works, and these are like really great resources and source material for like formulating your own. And I would say this year I only wrote half the sketches, and the rest were everyone else. So it's kind of awesome to think, like, I never thought about it until like right this moment where I'm like, that very first one, it was like all stuff that I wrote, and but then 3 years later it's like, wow, everyone is like having the confidence to be able to contribute and write and stretch their creative muscles in that field.
But also the competence, like writing is a skill, you have to work, and like it's very easy to say, oh, I'm funny, I have a good idea, I can like work this out, but like doing sketch is a very specific intentional thing where you have to really write in a structure and a flow, and it has to have, especially in the way Forevermore does sketch, where it's mostly in theater or mostly in like festivals, bars, etc., but it's not filmed, and like that's a very different genre almost. So being able to like pass on that skill set, that's actually competence, but also confidence. Like, you haven't been able to say that in Baltimore specifically is not a sketch heavy city.
It's not.
It's really not.
Like I said, we're the only one.
Yeah. Like, it's not only like, oh, we're the only all-women troupe. Like, we're the only sketch troupe.
I know.
In the entire city.
See, I didn't want to say that at first because I wasn't totally sure. And then I realized after doing this for 3 years, I'm like, oh, crap, we're the only one.
We're the only ones. That's us. So we're going to grab a quick break, and then we'll go back to talk about the rest of Forevermore and also the upcoming Valentine's Day show.
Heck yes.
Cool. And this is the break. So during our break times, we're going to let you know about a little bit of the things coming up at the Club Car that you can go to this very weekend, as well as a reminder about the upcoming Laugh Track show. So this Saturday, February 8th, you can find HOTS, that's HOTS, 2025's newest, sexiest, outrageous sapphic dance party, right at the Club Car. Tickets are $10, 21 plus. You can find a variety of sapphic performers such as Kenny Rooster, Sierra Rose, King Ovaltine, Bethamphetamine, Blair Bitch Project, and DJ Hollywood Glammy. It's a dance party night for queer women, other sapphics, if you're lesbian, bisexual, queer, trans, mass, etc. Anything that falls into the spectrum, please come out, dance, dress up, dress down, make out a bit. It's going to be fun. Other than that, you can check out Laugh Tracks at the Club Car February 22nd. We've got an incredible lineup for you this month, including Bria Badu, Dwayne Duke, Swetha Ramesh, Viv Topping, Nathaniel Hutman, and Jake Lazier. That's me. So you can find all that information on Laugh Tracks Baltimore on Instagram. Find out more about the Club Car at the Club Car Baltimore. That's also on Instagram, Facebook, wherever people are hanging out these days. And come see us in person. That's kind of the point of all of this. Let's get back to the show. Alrighty, we are back from our break, and we have Jena Frick talking about her upcoming show at the Fells Point Corner Theater, the Galentine's Day. This is the third Galentine's Day show, right?
Yes. It is our third Galentine's Day sketch show as a group.
On the 7th and the 8th of February. So this is coming out on Wednesday the 5th. So please get tickets if there are still any available. because you've sold out before a few times.
Yes, actually, at this time that we're recording, this is Friday, the January 31st.
31st, yeah.
Okay, so at this time, the Saturday show is very close to being sold out already. Okay. So, a couple days later, if there's tickets left, make sure you get them. There will be some at the door just for like a slightly elevated price, but
as you should.
Yeah, if there's still tickets available, you should get them because it's a real funny show. And actually, part of the reason why we kept doing this is because we were only planning on having one show the very first year, sold out almost immediately.
Yeah.
And we begged the theater to let us have a second show, and they did.
Yeah.
And that one didn't totally sell out, but nearly sold out.
90%.
So, like, these tickets go very fast.
Yeah. And this is your third time doing the show around, like, a Galentine's theme specifically. Is there anything about the third run you're doing differently? Now that you've done it, like, twice, you kind of know, like, the space specifically and what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. You kind of know, like, the format, the genre of doing, like, Galentine's. A lot of it is about dating and, like, romance stuff. But, like, is there anything... Like, compare show one, where, like, oh, we don't know what this is going to be, to it's sold out immediately, let's get a second one, to, like, show 2 years in, 3 years in. What's really different for you coming into it this time around?
So, for this one, we kind of, took a little bit of a leap with the theme as far as Galentine's goes. Okay. So the very first year, it was very on the nose, like dating, relationships, and the friendships that get us through it all. Yeah. Right? Yeah. The second iteration of it was more like celebrating fierce and feisty women. Right. Like our tagline was the Fierce and Feisty Sketch Show. Right. Where everything was very women oriented. That one actually happened in March, so it was like because of scheduling issues, but so we really honed in on like the Women's History Month thing. Okay. So this year we're back in February with the Galentine's Day thing, but rather than keeping it to specifically dating, we're broadening that to more just the ups and downs of the world, being a woman in the world, celebrating women artists who are putting their work out there. Right. And I will say that this show has a lot more production elements to it. Okay. We have a projector with some like some tech elements to it. We have more original songs and numbers that we're doing. Okay. We do have some puppets.
Oh boy.
We have some puppets in there. And trust, like, okay, so those of you who haven't seen a Forevermore show, it's all women, but anytime a woman is playing a male character, they have a backwards cap on. Yes. And one of the puppets is a male, so we made a small, tiny backwards cap for him because that's what we do. Oh, you know, art reflects life. We write to what we know. So I will say that this iteration of the show leans a little bit more into dark comedy. Yeah. Which is a little bit different than what we've been doing before, but I think it works really, really well and still has that same silly element that we as a group like to exude when it comes to our sketches. There is still some like dating and more traditional Galentine's Day-y type themes to it, but it's definitely leaning more into the realm of dark comedy this year, which I really liked exploring actually, because my natural tendency is already to write like more satirical stuff. But yeah, for those who have seen previous Forevermore shows, expect some new stuff, like some really new stuff this year that I think everyone's gonna really enjoy.
That's really exciting, because I was gonna ask about, because I've been getting this question a lot too, as like a queer show producer in the last like 4 months or so, being like, what's it like being the target of a lot of things going on? And it's like nothing about what I've done as like a comedian, as a producer. Like I was doing shows that really reflected the comedy I wanted to see, like diverse lineups who really focus on like specific experiences that they shared versus some shows in the city who don't do that. But does it feel different this year for you producing like an all-women sketch troupe, focusing on like, you know, what it means to be a woman, I guess, at the end of the day, but also I hate to say in this climate, but it's part of it. Like,
yeah, I mean, I would say that our group definitely, like, I mean, I've said this a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we write what we know.
Yeah.
And art reflects life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, last year we did a Handmaid's Tale parody sketch, which is on our social media channels. So, you know, it's something, it's, our material definitely reflects just like what's going on in the world, how we feel, and we try to take situations that we feel are tough and bleak and find a way to make it into something funny.
Yeah.
And whether that's to make a statement or just to make people laugh, it's just what we're hoping to do. And at the end of the day, that's why we exist, right?
Yeah.
To try and create art that makes people forget about the shitty things that are going on in the world, but also in some ways to maybe give people a different perspective and a different way to look at things, which is part of the reason why I've always loved comedy.
Yeah.
It's a way to push boundaries and comment on things that maybe are difficult to talk about, but in a way that's digestible.
Right.
And I would say that especially in this particular show, when we're writing what we know in the times that we're in right now, we're doing our best to be able to write to that.
Right.
But in a way that is poignant, in a way that can make things digestible, and in a way that we can allow people to laugh when maybe they don't want to, or smile when it's hard to do so.
Yeah.
And then hopefully walk away with a different perspective on things, and walk away not just being like, oh, that was a good night, but walk away thinking, I'm going to remember this for a while.
I'm going to take something from this.
I'm going to think about this.
Yeah.
And really that's part of the reason why I love this group so much, is because everyone in the group is very much on that same flow, on that same brainwave, where it's like, we're not just here to fulfill a hobby.
Flash in the pan.
Yeah, this to us is like an elevated hobby, where it's like, we're not just doing this for ourselves, but we're doing this to hopefully affect other people in a way that's positive.
Right.
You know?
Something I've noticed recently is that there's a lot of destruction around how things are currently, let alone like destruction around like, you know, federal funding and like, you know, rights as a whole. But I think comedy and theater and production as a whole is a very creation-oriented art. You're creating something. You're building a space. You're not destroying anything. You're not taking anything down. You're building something together to share that conversation, share that room, and share that idea. And I think that's what's really exciting about being able to produce in these times where it's like, you're creating something. You're making something that's being able to take home with you, something you can give your audience, where it's like, hey, this is not a destructive act where we're tearing down something you hate. We're creating a space to talk about stuff you like. And we're creating a space to talk about the things that are harder, but how we're all experiencing it together, and we can really build something. So I think that's the flip side of, oh God, what's it mean to be?
No, absolutely. Yeah. And like one of the things that like we definitely do within Forevermore is we always assess, is this punching down? We never want to do that. We 100% want to make sure that what we're doing is not mean. It's not in bad taste.
Right.
And we really take the time and the care to make sure that we do that, what we're doing is like funny on all sides, you know? And it's taking, like I said, taking things that are maybe more serious and putting it in a different light and a different perspective, so it's more digestible. That sort of thing.
Giving the space to like engage with it, digest it, think about it, but not like, this is so heavy, this is destructive, this is offensive, problematic, etc.
Totally. And like not just for our audiences, but also like for ourselves.
Exactly. You don't want to be that like group that like constantly deals with like these heavy, awful things.
Exactly. Yeah. And I know, I mean, for myself, like part of the reason why I do comedy and I am a writer in a lot of ways is that's how I process things. That's how I how when I have like hard things that I'm dealing with, a lot of times the way that I process things is I write about it.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many sketches I've written that were specifically about breakups. I have a sketch called The People versus the Ex-Boyfriend that will never see the light of day. I have another one that I wrote recently called Doomsday Dater that I was trying to write for this particular show.
Yeah.
It will not be in the show because it's 100% just me processing my own bullshit. And sometimes you need that.
Yeah.
For your, like, not just for your audience, but for yourself. And like the number of dog shit sketches that I've written were just me processing my own shit, my own emotions and stuff. Sometimes that's needed, but I know I have the wherewithal to know that this will never be on stage because it's not for an audience. This is for me.
This is a me thing. This is my content that's from trauma. I don't think this needs to be, performed.
Correct.
But speaking of content that is from trauma, emo music.
Mm-hmm.
That's a transition in the biz.
Wow, look at you in that segue.
Wow, segue.
You should be a meter maid with that segue.
So not only do you perform in the only sketch troupe in the city, but you also perform in, I think, one of the only emo cover bands that regularly performs in Baltimore. There
are actually a lot of other emo cover bands, but probably the only one that has a woman in it.
A woman in it, and is also like regularly at gigs. Like you perform, you're present, so to speak. So
sure.
Guyliner.
Yeah.
Guyliner, like as of filming, you will be at a Super Art Fight tomorrow night at Black Cat in DC, which is very exciting. Black Cat is an amazing venue. So.
I've never been there before, but I'm so excited.
You're gonna have a great time.
I can't wait. So by the time this comes out, we'll have already performed and I will have, gotten my big break and, in
the DC crowd.
Dazzled the DC audience because this is actually our DC debut. We've only been in Baltimore.
Okay.
So this is the first time we'll be in DC, which I'm very excited about.
There you go.
But yeah, so we are performing at Super Art Fight, which is an amazing show. If you can't make the one that's happening this week, I highly recommend you look up when they have their next one because they travel around and it's such a fun show, and it's a great way to support local artists without purchasing like a physical piece of art and put on your wall.
For context, Super Art Fight is basically Pictionary meets pro wrestling. It's have so fun. Two artists on either side of a stage, like drawing on canvases and fighting each other via the drawings, like doodles, where you get things like coughing euphemistically or like Pixar Mom Universe, stuff like that. So
and then there's like usually two comedians commentating on the whole thing. So it's Pictionary wrestling comedy show all in one.
So if you cannot make it via your time machine to the show.
That was on Saturday.
Last Saturday. I believe their next show is at the Furthermore convention in Dulles in early March, which you can find on my social media because maybe I might be a host at that. We will see.
Jake, that's exciting.
But Guyliner specifically is an emo cover band based in Baltimore.
Yes.
You can find them. You were performed at Autobar before? No?
Not Autobar. No, we've performed at Soundstage. We've performed at Power Plants.
Yes.
A bunch of different local bars around the area. And we also performed at Oktoberfest at the Maryland Zoo, which was so incredible. Yeah. Like, wow. You want to talk about like fulfilling my middle school like dreams of like singing Fall Out Boy into a hairbrush? That was 100% like wish dream fulfillment for myself.
Well, it's about to be fulfilled again.
Exactly. Yes. So we are going to be at the zoo again in May at Brew at the Zoo, May 24th. So the Saturday show. The Saturday drinking day.
So Brew at the
Saturday
Zoo.
Day.
Brew at the Zoo is an excuse to get drunk with penguins. They have 2 days every spring and fall in Baltimore. And this May 24th, you can find Guyliner doing the midday show at Brew at the Zoo. So grab your tickets now. Grab a drink
Definitely.
some and see some emo music.
We play all the favorites from the 2000s. So Paramore, My Chemical Romance, Panic at the Disco, Fall Out Boy, you name it. We got it. And we're known to throw swag out at the audience.
Okay.
So you may walk away with a t-shirt or some sort of like balloon or something like that. Or not balloon, beach ball.
Beach ball, balloon. I mean, they're inflated. It's the
same thing.
It's the same thing. You pump it up.
Yeah.
So you've got the Galentine show on March 7th and 8th.
No, February 7th and 8th.
February 7th and 8th.
Yes.
You've got the Guyliner show on May 24th.
Yep.
Is there anything else coming up you want to talk about?
Right now, no, but if you follow us on Instagram, so Forevermore Sketch Comedy is our Instagram handle, and Guyliner.band is our Instagram handle for the band. We're going to have lots of stuff coming up. I know Guyliner has a music video coming up, and we do, y'all are going to love this, an emo version of Pink Pony Club with Chaperone, and I love it, and if all goes well, Club Car may be the setting for that music video. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
We will
Fingers
see.
Crossed.
But yeah, so we have that coming up. And then Forevermore has a couple of different videos as well as collab shows in the works for the Baltimore area. And we will definitely be on the festival circuit as well. So we'll be traveling around. So best way to find out what we're doing next is to follow us on Instagram.
And if anyone wants to find you specifically, where can they find that?
They can find me on Instagram at Jena Frick. So it's Jena Frick, but with a Y instead of a J.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay, so it's YENAFRICK on Instagram, etc. We've reached the end of our cards. I have no other things to show you.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
I'm so impressed by the research. You want to talk about this guy's like I map things and it has nothing to do with like my regular. He like mapped out my fucking life.
So yeah, this has been Train of Thought. This is a podcast for the Laugh Tracks Comedy Show where I bring on previous guests of Laugh Tracks Comedy, but also future guests. Tune in next Wednesday for a future guest coming up to the Laugh Tracks Comedy Show on February 22nd. That is our next showcase in Baltimore, Maryland. Please come out to the Club Car. Until then, please stay safe. Keep hanging in there.
Stay warm. It's fucking cold
Stay
out.
warm. We can say that at least.
Yeah.
And thank you for listening.